Greetings to my fellow peace blunderers, and today I'm showing you a brilliant chess game, or should I say a brilliant puzzle, shown in the first Harry Potter film, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone if you're American. If you've seen that film but never really looked into what the actual position was that they showed, and now you're sitting there thinking, oh, that's actually quite interesting, I never thought of that. This video is for you. But first, before I dig deep into the position, I'd like to give you guys some context, which I think is really important. You see, this chess puzzle was composed by one of my favorite chess book authors of all time, absolute MVP, absolute Chad and legend, international master Jeremy Silman. He wrote the complete endgame course, he wrote how to reassess your chess, he wrote The Amateur's Mind, he wrote the lot. So he was approached by the director of the film, Chris Columbus, who also, of course, famously directed such amazing films as Home Alone, Mrs. Doubtfire, absolute classic, Robin Williams, rest in peace, the best. Percy Jackson, and of course the sequel to the first Harry Potter film, which was the second film, The Chamber of Secrets. And understandably, when Jeremy got this offer, he was absolutely on cloud nine. Not only did he get a chance to adapt a scene from one of the most popular book series of all time to the big screen, but also he got a chance to do it right. His quote: "When I was asked to create the chess positions for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, bloody hell, Jeremy, get a grip on life, it's the Philosopher's Stone, I was more than delighted. Throughout my life, I've watched movies and TV shows make a joke of real chess positions and real chess lingo. Now, after years of seething, I finally had a chance to do the job right." You could feel the excitement in Jeremy's words there. So he started working on it, and working really bloody hard. He's said to have spent a couple of weeks on designing the position that I'm about to show. And taking into account that this position is only a couple of moves long, and the time he spent on coming up with it, well, you can clearly see that he really cared. Unfortunately for Jeremy, the original sequence of moves that he was birthing for such a long time got cut down massively during production, and I'm not sure whether that was the director's intent or the studio's intent, but the gist is that even though the original sequence of moves that he put them on a plate wasn't even that long anyway, they still cut it down because they felt as though your average audience member will not really fancy looking through the entire sequence. And to add insult to injury, they never even credited Jeremy with creating this position. You will never find his name in a post-credits section, which I think is a real shame, but worry not, Jeremy, the OGs remember. So let's, in our own way, pay tribute to the Chaddington of a man that is Jeremy Silman, and let's finally look into the position, shall we? So it's black to move, and before we proceed, I'd like to point out that this knight is obviously represented by Ron Weasley in the film. This rook is represented by Hermione Granger, and this bishop is represented by Harry Potter himself. And if you remember the scene from the film, you will of course realize that Ron, being the knight, will have to go in one way or another, because in the film, Ron sacrificed himself so that Harry, the bishop, in our position, could deliver mate. So we already know two things. The knight will have to go, knight will have to be sacked, captured, and the bishop will somehow deliver mate, and Hermione is just going to be basically unscathed. And as much as this puzzle is a great position for dramatic narrative, you know, how one of Harry's best friends in Ron sacrifices himself so that Harry could step up and play a massive role and deliver the killing blow, this is a bloody brilliant puzzle just in and of itself. It features one of the most common and useful tactical patterns, which is the decoy sacrifice, where we sacrifice our pieces to distract our opponent's pieces away from some vital squares. Now, if you'd like to solve this puzzle by yourself and figure out how the knight should sacrifice itself so that Harry could deliver mate, feel free to pause the video and figure it out by yourself. I'm going to give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, here's the solution. The first thing we can immediately spot here is that the White's king, I ain't feeling so good. The White's king is completely stuck on the square it's currently occupying because our light squared bishop and our rook, which is Hermione, by the way, are doing an excellent job of restraining it. So if we could somehow find a way to check this king on g1, it's probably going to be mate as well, because the king has got no squares to go to. And since we know that Harry is the bishop that is going to deliver the mate in the film, we can conclude, of course, that it is exactly that piece, that bishop on a3, that is going to do that, to check the king on g1. And this is where we start thinking, okay, how is my bishop going to do that? Of course, the bishop is not going to do that from a3. We need to find a square from which the bishop can deliver a check. And the most obvious suspect in this case is, of course, the c5 square. The c5 square is looking absolutely perfect for our bishop to jump in and to deliver that check. But of course, the problem is the c5 square is currently occupied by our own rook. What a bloody traitor. And we need to figure out a way how to move this rook away from the square, but do it very organically. And what I mean by that, we need to move the rook away so that the white pieces, after we move the rook away, will not have enough time to address their king problem. And usually when we don't want our opponent to have time, we are going for the most forceful moves, which are checks or captures. And you may immediately start thinking, well, rook c1 check does look very forcing. The only way to treat this move, which makes sense, is for the rook to take. And voila, we freed up the c5 square. But now the problem is, and the most painful thing is, the c5 square is defended by the rook that just came onto c1. So bishop c5 check, which be otherwise mate, was just going to lead to nothing. The bishop is going to get captured. A very good idea, but the wrong execution. And this is where we develop on that. We start thinking, okay, so do I have any other rook moves that are still forceful but are not this check on c1? And the answer is, of course, you bloody do. We play rook to c3, which is a brilliant move, although chess.com is not saying that. Chess.com is greedy, giving it just one exclam instead of two. I don't know why, by the way. We are attacking the white queen, and of course, something has to be done about that. White doesn't want to lose a queen. And white takes, as what happened in the movie, but they didn't show it. That's the most frustrating part as well. This is what I'm talking about when I said that they cut down a lot of it. These moves before the Ron's sacrifice were simply not shown. They were shown. You could clearly see how something that resembles a queen in the film strikes down something that resembles a rook, but it was just like this. It was just like a second. It was never explicitly shown. And this is where you might start saying, well, how is this position different to the one where rook takes on c1? We have basically achieved the same thing, which isn't good for us, right? The queen came to c3 and is now protecting the c5 square. This is an example of not just one decoy sacrifice, but a double decoy sacrifice. We already sacrificed one piece as a decoy. Let's do another one. And this is, of course, where Ron comes into play with knight h3 check. And again, bloody hell, chess.com just gives it as a great move. Not a brilliant one. What the hell, chess.com? You've got to be banned from existence from this. My god. How this is not a brilliant move is completely beyond me. But regardless, of course, now with this check, the king is trapped. It's almost mate. Luckily, the white pieces have got this queen takes h3, which is the Ron's sacrifice in the film, when the queen slides in along the third rank to capture Ron's knight, basically strike him down, if you remember, with the sword. And this is the point where Hermione is like, no! And she's running towards Ron, but Harry's like, no, stay on your square, you stupid rook on f8, doing absolutely nothing the whole game, which isn't true. Don't be mean, Harry. The rook is, after all, controlling all of this. And this is where Harry gets to deliver his mate with bishop c5. You see that? Just like I promised you, with all of these squares being beautifully occupied by our pieces, this is going to be mate. Or is it? That's a good question, because this is where the scene in the film ended. Harry's like, aha! And Harry did say, checkmate, serious face, but in reality, it's not actually true. It's not checkmate just yet because the queen can block. Yes, it's checkmate for real this time after the next move, but this is another example how this position got really trimmed down for really little reason. You bloody arrogant prat, Harry, it's not checkmate yet, the queen can block. No wonder Ron is way better than you at chess. Also, one very interesting thing, if we go back to this position before the Ron's sacrifice, actually the sequence that is played in the film is not the fastest mate. You can do it the other way around. The same idea, double decoy sacrifice, but with the pieces reversed. What I mean by that, you can deliver check with bishop c5 now. And it's the same idea, because the queen now has to capture the bishop on c5, and now Ron, this time, gets the spotlight and delivers mate much quicker. This is mate in 2, and this position, which is the original position, is going to be mate in 3. Like so. This is mate in 3, and the position I just showed where bishop delivers check, this is mate in 2, which is quicker. But of course, Harry was the bishop, and Ron was the knight, and Ron was never getting all the fame, and obviously Harry could not be sacrificed, so the position had to be reversed. Makes sense. So yeah, that was the puzzle, and it was a very memorable sequence. But apart from it being just a memorable sequence, it's also very useful practically for our tactical training. After all, as I said, decoy sacrifices are an integral part of your tactical training. So don't miss out on positions like these. Don't sleep on them. They can be more important than you think. And if you just so happened to find this video useful, please like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitch. I stream Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Find me on chess.com. Join our Discord. All that good stuff. And I'm going to talk to you very soon. My favorite unintentional gambiters. Love you all. See you in the next one.